Hello, today we are going to look at how you choose the type of foundation for your project and also an in-depth view of what a deep foundation is all about with some examples. So let's get into it. Hello everyone. So deep foundation or shallow foundation, how do you know which one is going to go for your project? Well, of course, just from the name, deep foundation means it really has to be deep, right? And the shallow foundation, well, yeah, not that deep. So in order for you to know whether you have to go in for a deep foundation or a shallow foundation, first we will need to look at the nature of the site. So let's say you have your project. Let's say this is a piece of land like this. Now when you have your piece of land like this, the first thing that happens is a geotechnician or what we call a labo génie will have to come to the site. When they come to the site, they bore holes on the site like this, and they drill right down. This can go down from maybe 3 to 5 meters for little structures, or can even extend right up to 10 meters for massive structures even. Okay, this can even extend to 10 meters below the ground. Now they drill this, of course, with their equipment. And the reason they are doing this is because they have to take samples at each point on the site here. And when they take those samples now, they take them back to the lab to carry out verification to see the kind of site that you have. Okay, so when they go to the lab now, there are two things they are looking for. The first thing is to determine the type of soil that you have here. To determine the type of soil, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to determine the bearing capacity of the soil. The bearing capacity of the soil just means the strength of the soil. Okay, yes. So after they determine these two factors, that's the geotechnician, after they go to the lab, they determine the type of soil and the bearing capacity. The next thing is they send these details now to a structural engineer. They send these details to the structural engineer, who is going to be responsible for the structural calculation of your project. So the structural engineer takes these values now, and he is the one that is going to determine the type of foundation that is going to be placed in your project, whether it is a deep foundation or a shallow foundation. And he determines that based on, if he discovers that the type of soil here that the geotechnician came out with was maybe a muddy, a swampy, a sandy or clay soil, then we will go for a deep foundation. But if the type of soil was maybe made out of rocks, you know, rocky in nature and all that, then they can go for a shallow foundation. So it is a structural engineer that determines that, and once that is determined now, he or she can go ahead now and start calculating all the other factors that are going to need in terms of for the rods and all that. Okay, so that is basically how you determine whether your foundation is deep or shallow. And after the structural engineer has determined that now, then we can go on with the other factors. So let's look at an in-depth view of the deep foundation. Let's say after the structural engineer has done that, you are left with the option of a deep foundation. So for a deep foundation, this is mostly, it is rare to have a deep foundation for normal structures around, like our normal duplexes and maybe some light high-rise building that don't really go too tall. Yes, foundations are always mostly for massive structures, very large and huge structures. Okay, and the way you construct a deep foundation is very simple. Let's say this is our piece of land here. Okay, if this is our piece of land, now a deep foundation, let's take into consideration the first type of deep foundation, which is a pie foundation. So in order to construct a pie foundation, the first thing you do is, on site, you have to drill a hole, that is a foundation hole actually. So you come, not really drilling, you can dig like this, and you go down to the appropriate depth, which is going to be specified by the structural engineer. Let's just say in this case we are going down to maybe, let's say 5 meters. So you drill down 5 meters like this, and then after you drill this hole, it's cylindrical in shape. Cylindrical means that it's circular in shape. Okay, after drilling now, you send in your reinforcements, that is your rods. You send in your rods like this. Now of course the rods that you're sending in is also going to be in cylindrical nature, that is in circular nature. You send your rods like that all the way right down. And the third point after you do this now is pouring the concrete. You now pour your concrete inside like this. Okay, so you pour the concrete now from the bottom right up to the top. Now of course this kind of foundation is always for big structures and also for sites that have swampy soil or clay soil or sandy soil and all that. So after you do this, you are going to now come at the top. Let's look at the section. Let's say this is the section of the deep foundation. This is the section of this. This is the hole that has been dug like this, and you have the rods that are going down like this, and then the concrete also has been poured. Now let's say this is the ground level, GL, and then after you construct this below the ground, which is going to be below the ground of course since it's the foundation, you come now at the top and you put what you also construct another little component here, which is called a pie cap. So this is how it's going to be like. So this is just like drilling a nail into the ground. Okay, so you have a pie cap here. So this pie cap now, of course, above, this is where now you now put your columns or your pillars that are going to now carry the building. So this deep foundation, they are going to be in a so you just spot them out. It depends on how your plan is looking like. So you do that on the whole surface area, maybe it's something like that, and then you have this all over the whole place. So the way this foundation works is, when this pillar is being loaded, let's say the load is coming down like this. Let's use red. When this pillar is being loaded like this from the building, okay, now it is going to try to pierce the soil. Of course it is not as small as this. It's actually very massive, of a very big diameter. But what happens is the soil around is going to be acting opposite, so there is going to be a lot of friction which is occurring at the site here. So this friction now helps the foundation to stay still. Okay, add that with the support that you are going to have from the cap. This makes the foundation to stay very still in any condition, whether you are dealing with a swampy nature, a clay nature, a sandy soil, or whatever. This is the kind of foundation that is used in many of the high-rise buildings that I even have around the world. Even the tallest building that is existing now, this is the same methodology that was used in order to bring it up. The tallest building in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa and all that, this is how the foundation was constructed. Okay, so this is the methodology that is used in order to bring out a deep foundation, in this case pie foundation. Okay, so that is it for a deep foundation. In the next tutorial we are going to look at the shallow foundation, which is what we are really going to be using commonly, which is what we use mostly in our buildings, and we're also going to look at some examples and the methodology of constructing it. Thank you, and I hope this helped.